Hello, my name is Stevie Dubins, and in this one I'm going to mathematically prove what the best type combination is in Pokemon if each Pokemon had 3 types rather than 2. Previously, I had found the best type combinations for standard Pokemon, and that playlist will be shown at the end of the video. My methodology for this is in the description. There are 816 unique triple type combinations, so I have a lot to shift through, so let's get started. I'm going to start with the top 5 offensive types, then do defensive types, and then the overall average of the 2. The 5th best offensive type is Flying Ground Ice. That type combination deals super effective damage to 64% of the dex and neutral damage to 36% of the dex. No mons resist this type combo. At number 4, I have Fairy Ground Fire. Fairy Ground Fire does super effective damage to 63% of the dex and neutral to 37. Of the decks, only 7 mons resist this type combination, and they are all flying fire types. Number 3, I have Fairy Rock Ground. Fairy Rock Ground does super effective damage to 62% of the decks, and normal damage to 38% of the decks. No types resist this combination. We're starting to see some patterns in the typings that are good. Both Fairy and Ground are elite offensive types, and them showing up multiple times is not surprising. Number 2, I have Ground Ice Fire. Ground Ice Fire is strong against 63% of the decks and resisted by 37%. Ice is also an elite offensive type. However, it being one of the worst defensive types in the game holds it back from performing well. That and the fact that Game Freak refuses to make fast, strong ice types outside of recently with Baxcalibur, Chien-Pao, and Kyurem if you want to argue for that. At number 1, I have Rock Ground Ice. Rock Ground Ice does super effective damage to 65% of the decks and is resisted by 35% of the decks. Spoiler alert for my previous offensive type combination video, but Ground Ice was the highest ranked offensive type, so it's not surprising to see it feature in so many of these combinations. Next, here is my top 5 defensive types. Number 5, I have Steel Ghost Poison, which has 3 immunities. 1 8 times resist, 1 4 times resist, 3 2 times resist, 3 2 times effectives, 1 4 times effective, and the rest neutral. At number 4, I have Fairy Steel Fire. Fairy Steel Fire has 1 8 times resist, 3 4 times resist, 4 2 times resist, 1 2 times effective, and 1 4 times effective, and the rest neutral. At 3, I have Steel Flying Poison. That type has 2 immunities, 2 8 times resist, 1 4 times resist, 5 2 times resist, and 2 2 times effective. At 2, I have Steel Water Fire. That type has 1 immunity, 2 8 times resist, 4 4 times resist, 6 2 times resist, 2 2 times super effective, and 1 4 times super effective. And at number 1, I have Steel Poison Fire, which has 1 immunity, 3 8 times resist, 3 4 times resist, 2 2 times resist, and 1 8 times effective. Finally, here are my overall top 5 triple types. At number 5, I have Steel Ground Fire. Steel Ground Fire ended up being 44th offensively and 50th defensively. The thing about defensive and offensive type combinations is offensive types are usually terrible defensively, so we likely won't see any of the top 5 offensive types in the top 5 overall. At number 4, I have Steel Fairy Ground, which ranked 28th offensively and 60th defensively. Thus far, both types have had glaring ground weaknesses, and we'll see if that holds up. At number 3, I have Steel Water Fire. Steel Water Fire ranked 295th offensively and 2nd defensively. Thus far, this list is just begging to be swept by Excadrill and Sand. Also, like I said, I think it is much more likely that a top-tier defensive type with pretty good offensive typing makes this list than a top-tier offensive type with pretty good defensive type, due to most of the best offensive types being kind of bad defensively. At number 2, I have Steel Poison Fire. Steel Poison Fire ranked 526 offensively and 1st defensively. 8 times weak to ground is just spit in Excadrill's face, begging to be earthquaked. Before I get to number 1, I want to shout out the worst overall type, which was Dragon Grass Normal. Dragon Grass Normal ranked 809th offensively. Dragon Grass Normal deals super effective damage to 26% of the decks and does normal damage to 69% of the decks, nice, and is resisted by 5% of the decks. Dragon Grass Normal is also ranked 694th defensively. At number 1, I have Fairy Steel Fire. Fairy Steel Fire ranked 247th offensively and 4th defensively. Add another ground weak to the list and let's call it a day. So, that's my list. I have another one-off video coming next before a new big series, so subscribe so you can see that. Thank you, and goodbye.